Uh, the fun part about being 6'4", in my opinion, well above the average height for most males, is yes, it is a biologically desirable trait, but that is not to say it does not come without its drawbacks, particularly in progress made in the gym as well as social graces. So starting off with these social graces, a big thing is in social crowds you have to lean down to hear what your friends are saying and even ask them to repeat things 6 to 7 times. Yes, I know what I did there. So that's fun. So everybody walks away with the impression that you're deaf and you're just slow on the uptake. So, that is fun. Another thing too is whenever you're leaning down, you look like you have really shitty posture. So you just learn to always have to look like that. Not really learn to have to look like that, but you always look like that, which of course, bad posture makes you almost look like just a hunchback at 6'4", which is not desirable. So, that's gotten better for me as I've aged, but, still there are times where I have to catch myself and, correct that posture. Um, so that's fun. Another thing too is from like a more physical standpoint is whenever you are walking with friends, sometimes you have to slow yourself down and walk kind of at a ridiculous pace because if you walked at your normal pace, you'd be several yards ahead of your friends because you can cover so much more ground than they can. That was always something that I had to, and still do, have to work with. A lot of my friends criticize me acting like I'm a track sprinter and I'm walking. I'm like, no, I'm just covering ground quicker than you can because I have legs several inches longer than you do. So that's fun. Um, Good God, the amount of times I have been criticized for that is just forever. It's a lot. And then another thing in the physical sense is you will always be behind, as far from an on paper perspective, like, how much weight you lift, especially, and the kind of physical progress you can see in the gym. For me, a big example, or when I first noticed it, was back whenever I was playing football in high school and we'd be lifting weights. As a lineman, that's what as a lineman, offensive line, D line, whatever, you are expected to lift more weight than the other, pretty boy counterparts, quarterbacks, wide receivers, all that. So, but for me, it was like I was just above them, lifting noticeably less than a lot of my other lineman counterparts who were shorter. For instance, one of my friends could sit there and squat for 4 plates as a sophomore in high school, while I'm huffing and puffing at 3. So that was always fun. But then, once I looked it up and just did the research and realized that yes, tall guys may be able to cover ground quicker, but they will never physically lift as much weight as their shorter counterparts because they have a longer bar travel. It really was a bitter pill to swallow, but, scientifically justifiable. Another thing, while we're on the subject of scientific justifications, there we go, was the fact that for me and for everybody tall, a big thing that I've had to swallow is I'm always going to see progress in the gym at an exponentially slower rate than my shorter counterparts. Almost to the point where my shorter counterparts can just walk in the gym, just look at a weight, and they will see gains. Where for me, it'll probably take me at least 6 months realistically for every 3 months of someone who is the average. I think it's 5'9" average male physique. So that's always fun. But, obviously there are drawbacks to being tall, but you just gotta learn to live with them. So if you're like me and you're tall, just know that, yes, it's a biologically desirable trait, but it's not without its limitations. And the best thing you can do is just accept that and keep moving forward each and every single day. Just do what you gotta do and everything else will fall in line. So do that.